Making a coil of clay is actually a very simple process. I like to take the extra clay that I had left over, and I also use a spray bottle, and I put a little bit of water on the surface of the table I'm going to work on, and just spray a little bit of water onto that clay. And I'm going to very gently with my hands start to roll this clay, and I'm creating exactly what I call it, a coil of clay, a long cylinder, a very thin cylinder of clay, about the diameter of a pencil, or maybe a little bit thinner than that. The key to a coil, a good coil, is to make sure that it's nice and flexible. It needs to be soft and flexible. If you make a coil and it breaks when you start to handle it, it doesn't have enough water in it. So I like to sometimes add a little bit of water by giving it a little bit of a spray. As you roll a coil on the canvas, on the table that you're using, the canvas will absorb a little bit of extra moisture. So if it's too wet, you can kind of roll it on a dry spot on the canvas, and it'll take up some of that extra moisture. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be, you know, about like this. This is a nice soft coil. I can use this now. I'm going to bring this over to the center again to put a coil on the inside of this cylinder where I made the vertical joint. So I just kind of put it in there and measure it with my finger, pinch it off, and before I attach the coil, I'm going to go back in with a fork and I'm going to score this. Now, the coil is usually soft enough that you don't need to add more slip when you join the coil. You can put a little bit on there if you want to, but if the coil is soft enough and the clay you're using is soft enough, you usually don't need to worry about adding more slip. Now, I'm going to turn this so that hopefully you'll be able to see kind of down on the inside there. Maybe you can see where I've scored it on the inside where that joint is, and that's where this coil is going to go. And I'm kind of doing the opposite of what I did before here. I'm supporting the cylinder on the outside with my hand, and I'm going to go down in here with my fingers and I'm going to push it into place on that vertical joint. And the goal is to push that coil into that joint between those two pieces of clay so that we get a single piece all the way up and down with no edges. Now this clay that I'm using is very, very soft, so I have to be really super careful not to accidentally tear a hole in it. And hopefully when we get done here, you'll be able to see I'm kind of pushing the clay all the way up and down to create a single piece, joined really well, like I've said before, like that, to create that joint between the two ends of the cylinder that I joined. And hopefully if I turn this, you'll see I've done a pretty good job of joining that so that we can't see that joint anymore. Now I have to do one more coil that's all the way down on the inside in the joint between here, and then my cylinder is done.